Hey guys, this is another of my pool plan video in the upcoming arc featuring Charlotta in DFFOO global version of the game. This video will cover banners and events where Charlotta will be featured as a synergy unit, and for reference you can see the cropped infographic on the left hand side of the screen, which was derived from the World Authors global forecast to see which events these were. I will also be placing a link to the full global forecast in the video description. If this is the first time you are watching my pool plan video, quick disclaimer about the purpose of the video. The idea behind this is of course to share my plans for the upcoming banners, but importantly I'll also be going through my thought process and reasons behind why I pull or skip certain characters. Obviously this is heavily biased by my playstyle and preferences, and because everyone is always a little bit different here, this may or may not be the ideal plan for you. What I always strongly recommend and advocate is for everyone to do your own research into the upcoming characters' kits and changes so that you can make the best informed decision whether or not you should pull or skip certain characters. Before heading into Charlotta's arc, just a quick recap and tally about how I did during the banners in Gabran's FRBT arc. First up, there was of course the release of Gabran's PT and FR, and Leo's PT is also featured on a secondary banner during his event. I actually skipped both banners because I already had both Gabran and Leo up to their LDs, and I wasn't really interested in Gabran's BT or FR, so that was an easy skip for me. Ursula was the next event after Gabran, and I actually skipped Ursula the first time around when she debuted in the global version of the game. This time around I decided to go in with tickets, going after her kit and of course her FR weapon. In total I spent 190 tickets before I got Ursula's LD and FR. And as a side bonus, I guess I also scored Gabran's burst weapon along the way. Midway through this arc, of course we had the release of the global exclusive Raid Common event, and there were two banners that got sort of like a time travel, which is the Terra FRBT banner and the triple LDBT banner featuring Laguna, Zac and Kieran. The triple LDBT for me was an easy skip. I actually don't have Zac or Kieran's burst weapons, but otherwise I had every other LD weapon on that banner, and I already had Laguna's burst weapon, so I wasn't interested in throwing tickets there. Terra of course for me was a no-brainer. She's one of my favorite units to use in the game, particularly because she's very good at doing zero turn runs, something that I'm quite interested in. So I went in hard with tickets going after her FR. I already have everything else in her gear, and it did take me 220 tickets total before I got her FR, but I think it's a worthwhile investment. Finally, to round off this arc, we had Fujin's event, which is the Blue Pulse event. There were two banners featured there with the same characters, and the biggest difference is the burst weapon featured on the banner. For me, this was again an easy skip. I had Caius's gear including his burst weapon already, and I did already have Fujin's gear up to her LD, and I wasn't interested in her FR at all, so that was quite an easy skip overall. In total, the final tally in this arc, it was 410 tickets split across both Ursula and Terra's banner. Okay, so coming to the first event in Charlotta's arc, which is Dimensions End Transcendence Tier 10. There's going to be two banners on this event. The first banner will feature the release of Charlotta's FRBT. Alongside her, there will be secondary featured characters of Lena and Afmao as well. The second banner features Charlotta FR as well, but it actually features different secondary characters in the form of XDev, Irvine, and Ida. So a little bit about Charlotta. She already did receive her C level 90 during the Lufenia Plus era. During this event, of course, we will have access to her newly released burst weapon and FR weapon. First up, about her force weapon. On paper, her force time effects may seem a little bit lackluster in the sense that you get the plus 40% when any player character uses a modified Brave for HP attack. So this conditional is a little bit niche because not every character would have a modified Brave for HP attack that you really want to press. On top of this, if Charlotta herself batteries an ally during her turn, the force time effect will increase by a further 20%. Unfortunately, the second conditional is only for Charlotta herself. That being said, Charlotta is actually quite a strong character overall, and to me this is really one of the cases where you can't really judge the strength of a character based on the force weapon alone. She does have several positive things going for her. Firstly, the thing that I really like about her is that both her S1 and her EX are instant turn that doesn't do any HP damage, which also means that she's quite a fantastic force gauge charger as well. Bonus points because she's actually the first GL character that is a force gauge charger and has access to BT. As always, she's a strong aura bot support as well, and the release of her burst weapon actually makes her position as an aura bot support even stronger because her BT aura is really loaded. It provides the party with 50% Brave gain up, which really synergizes well with her kit, 20% HP damage up, 30% obtained Brave overflow up, 20% Brave and HP damage cap up, which is always very nice to have. In addition, while her BT aura is up, the party will Brave gain every field turn, and she also gives a Kit Sith-like effect where every Brave attack that you do will also give you 10% max Brave in the form of Brave battery. Putting everything together, the fact that she has very strong party auras just standing there, the fact that she has very strong Brave battery-like effects in her kit, and the fact that she also covers the role of a force gauge charger while having access to BT, I think really sort of solidifies her position overall in the main party. Her damage isn't too bad as well. Given that she now has access to her BT mode, you can potentially, for example, go BT plus, go into FR with her, and then go into BT mode, and then you can use her Chuck Stuff, which is modified HP attack after she uses her LD, to deal tons of damage as well as greatly increase the force gauge bonus during her BT mode. I also want to give at least special mention to Afmao, who is the secondary feature character on her banner. Afmao is a character that I really like because she has a lot of utility going in her kit. She has good support auras overall. She gives the party 100% debuff evasion, she can heal the party, and importantly, her LD also gives her access to turn manipulation, where you can pair her with another unit and she will give the other unit an instant turn anytime that she takes her turn. In terms of the second banner featuring XDev though, I don't really like that banner. Although XDev has the unique position of being able to deal damage that isn't reliant on the enemy's defense or brave resistances, his damage is solely reliant on his attack stat. That being said, a lot of his damage comes from his ability to deal HP poison, and really unfortunately for him, HP poison effects isn't amplified by force time bonus. Irving was released not too long ago actually, during the late Lufenia Plus era, but I'm never really a big fan of his kit. He's sort of like a jack of all trades but really master of none. He can inflict range imperil in his kit, he can heal, and he can also inflict blind debuff as well. But overall, none of what he provides is really unique to him, and most of the time, at least for myself, if I want to bring a character that provides those utility, there's usually someone else that I'd rather bring along instead of him. Ida does get a rework as well on this kit, and while her damage is pretty okay actually, it isn't terrible by any means. I don't think Ida alone is enough of a reason for at least for me to be spending resource on this banner. So overall my plans is to skip the second banner, but I will be throwing in tickets aiming for Charlotta FR. I was actually hoping to use gems here, but I really do have to use my tickets. I do have tickets sitting in my inbox that will expire in about 10 days or so. If I don't get Charlotta's burst weapon by the time Reno's event rolls around, I may just token her BT weapon by then as well. The next event after that on the same week will be Reno's Intersecting Wheels, and the banner here will feature of course Reno with his newly released Force weapon. Reno actually did receive his C90 upgrade and a rework during the Lufenia Plus era. He does receive another rework on this banner, although it's a smaller rework given that he did already receive a rework not too long ago. Overall, his damage is tweaked a little bit more so that he's more in par in the Shinryu meta. I really like Reno's Force weapon because it does have a very sort of like a unique force time bonus conditional. Firstly, whenever any player does any thunder attack, it will plus 20% force bonus. Keep in mind though that Reno only has self thunder enchant, he doesn't actually enchant the party, so you do need something else to provide other party members with thunder attacks. That being said, the other two conditionals I think is pretty good overall. The first of which is anytime an enemy passes their turn, the force gauge will increase by 20%, and if an enemy does any sort of physical, which is either a melee or range, brave damage, the force time bonus will increase by a further 30%. Now this I guess is a little bit or somewhat niche conditionals because it does hinge on the enemies taking their turns, and in some fights you obviously do not want this to happen. That being said, there are fights where there will be enemies that will take their turns. In particular, you've probably seen recently fights where the enemies can warp their turns to the front and take multiple consecutive turns. I think one good example is the Raid Comet event. The key thing about enemies taking turns is they don't take down your force time counter. So in the right fights where the enemies have multiple turns and do physical brave damage, you can actually quickly rack up your force time bonus while still maintaining your force time count. And if you pair Reno with often damage dealers or counter attackers, you'll actually be seeing a massive force time bonus fueled counter attacks. In terms of secondary feature characters on this banner, Ashe gets a rework as well, and yes, her damage gets boosted, and alongside that I think something notable for Ashe is that she now starts the battle with access to her HP attack Queen's Order, which gives you the ability to turn manipulate right at the start, and her EX now also paralyzes all enemies. I don't have a lot of interest in Ashe, but I do have a lot of interest in Reno's FR, so I will be spending tickets to pull for his FR. At this point, I think it's always good to have force weapons with conditionals that fulfills certain niche in the party situation, or I should say in the battle situation, and Reno's is quite an interesting one because it shines a lot when the battle forces the enemies to have multiple turns. At the very least, if I didn't get Charlotta's burst weapon in the first event, at least this banner gives me another chance to hopefully score her burst weapon as well. Finally, to round off this arc, we do have a raid event featuring Cloud of Darkness, Rerun BT and newly released FR weapon. Cloud of Darkness rework across her damage looks on paper to be quite massive overall. As a damage dealer, she actually features a lot of HP dumps throughout her kit. From what I can see across her attacks, the HP dumps can range between 5 to 7 dumps overall. Her FR weapon gives plus 5 darkness stacks the moment you press it, and it also delays all enemies by 1 turn, which is always good. Her force time effects centers around characters that specializes in turn delay. When an enemy is delayed by any means including break delays, the force time bonus will increase by 20%. If the enemy is delayed but the delay is not from breaks, it will increase by a further 30%. And if you do any sort of off-turn magic brave damage, it will increase by 5%. Her FR is really well suited for her as long as you have her BT weapon green. For example, you can first use her BT plus and then quickly try to build up her darkness stacks by aggressively using her LD at the start of the battle, after which you can pop her FR and go into a BT mode and spam Zero Form Particle Beam. Her Zero Form Particle Beam will trigger the plus 20 and plus 30% bonuses, and her off-turn damage full up attack will trigger the 5% bonus as well. That being said, her force time bonus doesn't have to be centered around her. You can use characters that also specialize in turn delay, and they should be able to rack up the bonus pretty consistently, especially since Cloud of Darkness with her BT aura will still trigger the magic off-turn brave damage to at least fulfill the 5% bonus. I guess the only downside in this case for Cloud of Darkness is that her full-up attack is dependent on her BT aura, and her full-up attack didn't get any boost during this event, so her full-up attacks actually still remain the same as it used to be. Setzer is featured as a secondary character on her banners, and he's actually a pretty good character utility wise. He does have access to the Brave Freeze through his Freeze Joker, and he's one of 2 characters that has that sort of effect in their kit, the second being Cater with her LD. With his rework, his Freeze debuff is now a framed debuff, and interestingly, his red card got a massive plus 6 users overall for a total of 15 skill users, and now does 50% splash, so this greatly increases his longevity in battle as well. His LD buff, which is the fixed dice buff, now gets a plus 3 turn duration for 12 turns total, which also means that you don't have to refresh his LD buff as often as you used to have to do. For me, I already have all of Setzer's gear, and I already have all of Cloud of Darkness gear as well, including her BT weapon, of course just minus her Force weapon. I would like to get her Force weapon, but looking back at this arc, if I'm already going to be pulling on Charlotta's event and Reno's event, I think I'll probably be leaning more towards skipping these banners altogether. I can probably live without Cloud of Darkness FR weapon, and at least with her rework I can still use Cloud of Darkness with her LDBT. Maybe I might consider pulling on this event if I get extremely lucky on both Charlotta and Reno, but I don't think I'll be that lucky, so in all likelihood I'll probably just skip this event. In this part of the video, I'll try to cover which characters I think should be more deserving of your gems and tickets and ingots if you are running low on resources. Overall, I think the winner of this arc is Charlotta. Like I said, she does sport a good overall kit because she has at least a serviceable FR, but importantly, she also functions as a great party support. She gives strong auras to the party. She can really battery the party really very well, and on top of that, she also does have the additional function as a force gauge charger as well that has access to BT. I think this is really a good plus sign because it allows you a little bit better flexibility when you're putting your main party together, because you don't have to think about another party member to fulfill the role as a force gauge charger. She's a really strong party enabler due to the fact that her Brave battery is so strong. Even if the bosses have very strong Brave resistances, you should still be able to push out somewhat respectable HP damage, and the good thing is that a lot of her support isn't reliant on any element, so if there are fights with elemental lockouts, Charlotta will do really well there. In terms of role fulfillment, there are 4 characters that I want to mention. First of all, I think the most borderline one would be Aphmau. At this stage, I'm not really sure whether Aphmau is a very strong pick, but because I really liked her kit and because she still does have a lot of utility, I decided to put her, at least as I mentioned, in the role fulfillment. If you are a new player, and you want to have another support character that has debuff evasion, Aphmau is there as well. Lena is also of course on Charlotta's banner, and she does also have debuff evasion, but Lena's damage at this point of the game is going to be slightly outdated, and at least with Aphmau's damage being reworked, she's I guess a little bit more up to date compared to Lena. Reno I think is a very interesting character. I might have skipped him altogether if not for his very unique FR. If you want to have an FR that really shines when put together with counter attackers and often damage dealers, particularly tanks like Oren and upcoming Gladiolus, or Kayn with his often Lancets, then Reno's FR is actually quite a strong choice. And if you are stuck in fights where bosses will get multiple turns, it might be worthwhile to try using Reno's FR there. Cloud of Darkness I think would deserve mention if you really want another damage dealer in this arc to round off your party. As a magical damage dealer, she really shines quite a lot. Like I said earlier, her rework actually gives her multiple HP dumps across her kit, and if used well, she can do very well in the overall DPS department. Do note though that if you really want to use Cloud of Darkness to her fullest potential, you do need to invest fully in her, including a fully green BT as well. Lastly, I want to talk about Setzer. He's actually quite a useful character utility wise, and his call ability gives you access to his very valuable Freeze Joker. Not to mention, at this stage of the game, rainbow damage is still relatively rare, and he's the only support as far as I can think of that can provide your entire party access to rainbow damage through the use of his LD. Do note though that if you want access to his rainbow damage, you do need to actually slot him in your main party. His LD call doesn't give you the rainbow damage buff. I think he's definitely worth at least a consideration, particularly if Dare to Defy is going to be a feature in the GL version of the game. I think having him in your roster will at least help you in one of the fights in the Dare to Defy lockout stages. As far as the other characters on this arc go, I think relatively speaking they probably wouldn't provide as much value as these 5 characters go. So because of that, at least in my view, they are more a consolation prize. Nothing bad about them, but again, if you're really low on resources, I think value wise these 5 characters will likely provide you more value than the rest of the characters on this arc. So that's it for this video. In summary, I plan to be throwing tickets for Charlotta and Reno's FR. I really hope to score Charlotta's BT along the way. If not, I may consider to use my BT tokens here. For the rest of the banners, I'll be skipping. As always, I hope this video has been helpful, and if you enjoyed the content, please leave a like, comment or subscribe. It really helps a lot. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next pool plan video. Bye!